I was asking Milton what you thought of that look cover that he did of you.
I liked it very much, although I like most of Milton's pictures.
Uh-huh.
Very happy time. I'm happy to be back. As I said, it's my hometown.
Yes.
Well, you're a happy girl now. When you go to London? Well, Marilyn,
yes, I'm much happier though. I'm very pleased.
Is it true that you submitted a list of directors that you would work with? We only know the rumors we hear, you know.
I would rather say that I have director approval, and that is true.
This you think is important?
Yes, it is. It's very important to me.
You're wearing a high-neck dress now. The last time
Los Angeles, August 4th, 1962. The mansion at 12305 Fifth Helena Drive in Brentwood is shrouded in a heavy silence, as if even the air itself knew that something final was about to happen. Marilyn Monroe, the woman who captivated the world with her doll-like smile and voice as soft as velvet, was spending her Saturday at home. It was supposed to be a weekend of rest. Instead, she made phone calls, spoke to ghosts from her past, and took pills, lots of pills. Witnesses say she seemed restless. She spoke of things she needed to say, dropping names in a grave tone. It's said that she called actor Peter Lawford, brother-in-law to President John F. Kennedy, and left a strange message. Tell the president he knows what he did. And I know too. That would be the last message Marilyn ever left. 8 p.m., the lights that wouldn't go out. The housekeeper, Eunice Murray, noticed that the bedroom light was still on past 9 p.m. The phone was off the hook, emitting a constant hum. Eunice knocked on the bedroom door. No response. Worried, she called the actress's psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, who arrived at 10:40 p.m. They broke in through a window. And there she was. Lying face down, naked. An oddly staged pose. Arms at her sides, as if she had been carefully positioned. An empty Nembutal bottle by the bed. A deadly silence in the room of the most famous woman in the world. 11:30 p.m. The death phone. The police weren't called until 4:25 a.m., nearly 5 hours after the body was discovered. The first officer on the scene, Jack Clemens, immediately sensed something was off. It was the most orderly overdose scene I've ever seen. No glass of water. No vomit. Bottles lined up neatly. No mess. A clinical suicide. A tragedy far too clean. And Clemens grew suspicious. That scene was staged. The celebrity who knew too much. Marilyn Monroe was more than a star. She was a ticking time bomb. She knew too much about the wrong people, and she wasn't afraid to speak out. Deeply involved with the two most powerful men in America, she was the mistress who had seen behind the curtains of politics, the CIA, the Mafia. And now she was dead. Officially, from a barbiturate overdose. But few truly believe that version. The press arrives late, the public even later. Hours later, when the press finally showed up, the mystery had already been swept away. Everything seemed under control. The journalists found the house in order, the housekeeper withdrawn, the doctor evasive. But something had shifted in the air of Hollywood. Marilyn's death didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something much bigger. Secret revealed. Eunice Murray, the housekeeper who discovered the body, gave conflicting interviews over the years. In 1985, she confessed in a documentary that Robert Kennedy had been at the house that night. Moments later, she denied it. But the camera had already caught her words. What was Robert Kennedy doing there? And why did the housekeeper change her story so many times? The early hours of August 5, 1962, in Los Angeles carried an ironic calm, as if the universe itself had been holding its breath. While the city slept, the tragedy had already unfolded at 12305 Fifth Helena Drive. What should have been an immediate response to the collapse of one of the most iconic women on the planet instead became one of the strangest police operations in Hollywood history. Marilyn Monroe, the woman who had lit up screens, stages, and fantasies, now lay in a bed that didn't seem like her final choice, but rather the stage of a final act scripted by invisible hands. The delayed alarm. It wasn't until 4:25 a.m. that the Los Angeles Police Department received the formal call reporting the actress's death. Detective Jack Clemens of the LAPD was the first to arrive at the scene. Years later, he would recall. It didn't look like a suicide. It was like someone had arranged everything. It was too neat, even the pill bottles were lined up. She looked placed there. Clemens immediately found it strange that the house was spotless. The housekeeper had showered and changed clothes, and psychiatrist Ralph Greenson, who claimed to have discovered the body, was far more nervous than the situation seemed to warrant. Rather than let the police take control, Greenson kept talking compulsively, as if trying to control the narrative before the questions even began. Eunice Murray, the housekeeper, claimed she noticed something was wrong around 3 a.m. But why wait until after 4 o'clock to call the police? And why, according to phone records, did she first call lawyers connected to the studio and the Kennedy family? The sealed room. Marilyn's bedroom was said to be locked from the inside. To enter, Greenson reportedly broke a window using a garden tool. However, the police later found the door showed no signs of having been locked, and the window was open, with no glass shards from the supposed break-in. The autopsy would reveal a high level of barbiturates in her blood and liver, but none in her stomach. How had she ingested the pills? The theory that she might have taken them via enema began to circulate, but no clinical evidence supported it. Another puzzle piece that didn't fit. Unnecessary movements. Greenson allegedly moved the body before the police arrived, something that violates basic protocol in any unnatural death. What was he trying to hide? Or better yet, what was he trying to stage? The scene appeared carefully manipulated to suggest suicide. No signs of struggle. No note. Just a fallen phone, a nude body in an unusual position, and an empty bottle of Nembutal. A nurse who arrived at the house early that morning later said in an interview, "She didn't look dead. She looked forgotten. Like someone had placed her there and moved on." The report and the gaps. Thomas Noguchi, the coroner who performed the autopsy, listed probable suicide by barbiturate overdose, but carefully avoided the word definitive. The toxicology report revealed extremely high concentrations of Nembutal and chloral hydrate, but the absence of pills in the stomach raised alternative theories. Suppository, injection, or another method. Worse still, Marilyn's internal organs mysteriously disappeared from the county coroner's office days later, making further analysis impossible. Dr. Noguchi himself admitted, "I was never able to complete the autopsy. Essential parts of her body just vanished." Silent actors, withholding witnesses. Actor Peter Lawford, brother-in-law to the Kennedys, received a phone call from Marilyn earlier that evening. According to him, she was drugged but coherent and angry at someone. Lawford never revealed the full content of the call. He merely hinted. She spoke as if she were saying goodbye. It was disturbing. Marilyn's publicist, Pat Newcomb, who had spent the day with her, disappeared for 72 hours following the actress's death. When she reappeared, she refused interviews and didn't speak publicly again for decades. Her explanation? "I was emotionally overwhelmed." But witnesses claimed she was quietly escorted out of the city. The night that was never told. The phone off the hook, a classic symbol of an interrupted call. The light left on, indicating wakefulness or waiting. The door said to be locked, but found unlocked. A perfect suicide, or an imperfect cover-up? Many believe that between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., Marilyn's home had visitors never mentioned in the official account. Neighbors reported seeing a man in a dark suit exiting through the back door. A neighborhood security guard claimed he saw a black car parked for over an hour with the engine running. No one getting in or out. None of these accounts were included in the official files. Ignored or deliberately erased. Secret revealed. In 1982, 20 years after Marilyn Monroe's death, a quiet reopening of the case was conducted by the U.S. Department of Justice. The investigation was closed again, but among the archived files is one internal memo that has never been released to the public. Its title reads, "Confidential Interview, Presence of Federal Authority at Scene Prior to Police Arrival." Who was this authority figure? And why was their presence never included in any official record? Marilyn Monroe's final moments were marked by something deeply unsettling: the telephone. It was off the hook when the housekeeper entered her bedroom, like a symbol of an interrupted call, a message that never reached its destination, or was prevented from doing so. Those who have investigated her death always return to the phone, an object seemingly mundane, yet one that has become the center of multiple theories, contradictions, and deafening silences. The telephone not only captured Marilyn's final whispers, but seems to have echoed the very sound of what killed her. The calls that don't appear in records. Marilyn made several phone calls during her final hours. This is confirmed by witnesses, including her psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, and her housekeeper, Eunice Murray. But the records of those calls, made from the actress's residence, have never been publicly released. The switchboard operator on duty that night disappeared weeks after the incident. His name was never mentioned again in any official inquiry or report. Among the known calls, one stands out. Peter Lawford, actor and brother-in-law to John F. Kennedy, received a call from Marilyn around 7:30 p.m. According to his statements at the time, she seemed strange. She said disconnected things. Mentioned the president. Said they were discarding her. Then she said, Tell him he knows why. Lawford, alarmed, allegedly tried to call back, but the line had gone dead. Later that night, in the early hours, he tried again. The phone was off the hook. The FBI's wiretaps. Since 1956, the FBI had been keeping a file on Marilyn Monroe. Initially because of her marriage to playwright Arthur Miller, a known leftist sympathizer. Over time, the notes expanded to include her phone calls, meetings, and visits with high-ranking political figures. In 1983, portions of these files were released under the Freedom of Information Act. Many, however, were heavily redacted. One, in particular, stands out. Subject: Monroe, Marilyn, recorded conversation on August 3, 1962. Reference to meetings with political figures in a potentially compromising context for national security. The contents of that recording were never made public. Theorists claim the FBI and CIA had wiretaps on Marilyn's phone, and possibly in her home, under unofficial authorization from the Kennedy brothers, to ensure she didn't leak sensitive information to the press or worse, to foreign agents. After all, she was emotionally unstable, and she knew too much. The call to the mysterious journalist. On August 4th, there is evidence that Marilyn may have called a journalist from the Hollywood Citizen News. The reporter's name has never been confirmed, but rumors suggest she intended to schedule a bombshell interview for the following Monday, August 6th. The topic? Her relationships with the Kennedy brothers. And a folder of documents she allegedly kept, filled with conversations, messages, and confidential meeting notes. The journalist never came forward, and the interview never happened. Crossed calls, broken taps. Years later, a retired telephone technician, William Gallagher, claimed in a local Pasadena radio interview that there were orders to intercept and record all of Marilyn's calls in the final 48 hours before her death. He added, there was a call around 10 p.m. The line dropped abruptly. Then someone reconnected. But the voice that answered wasn't hers anymore. He was dismissed as a crackpot. But a week after the interview, Gallagher disappeared. The room that heard everything. Investigative rumors suggest Marilyn's phone was connected to a surveillance system installed by Fred Otash, a well-known private investigator of the era, often hired by movie studios, politicians, and media tycoons. In a posthumous interview published by his daughter, Otash revealed in personal notes that he had been recording conversations from Monroe's bedroom using hidden devices. One transcribed passage reads, "On the night of August 4th, I captured male voices. One sounded like Robert. The other, Greenson. There were screams. Then, total silence." These recordings, if they exist, have never been released. But Otash's handwritten notes have been authenticated by experts. The last words never heard. The phone off the hook was not just a careless detail. It was a message. Or perhaps, a cry for help cut short. The woman who captivated the world with whispered words, who was desired by presidents and hunted by federal agencies, had turned her telephone into a scream that found no echo. Witnesses interviewed by journalist Anthony Summers claimed there was unusual activity at the Los Angeles Telephone Exchange in the early hours of August 5th, and that Bell telephone technicians worked quietly on lines connected to Monroe's home. Why would someone erase those calls? What did Marilyn say, or was about to say? Secret revealed. A classified FBI document, labeled Memo 143/Monroe/62, records the existence of a phone tap from August 4th, in which Marilyn mentions a box of evidence that she planned to send to a journalist. That box was never found. What was inside? And why has no one ever officially searched for it? No star ever shone as brightly as Marilyn Monroe. No president ever fascinated the public like John F. Kennedy. And no U.S. Attorney General ever carried more secrets than Robert Kennedy. At some point in history, these three names became inextricably intertwined, forming a triangle where desire, power, and paranoia collided. To the world, Marilyn was the forbidden lover. Behind the scenes, she was something far more dangerous, a threat of exposure, a living witness to palace conspiracies, a woman who knew too much. The woman between two brothers. John F. Kennedy met Marilyn in 1961. Their first encounter is said to have taken place at a dinner party at Bing Crosby's house, where the two vanished together for nearly an hour. It was more than a fling. There was something personal. Marilyn felt seen. JFK, cloaked in presidential aura, felt invincible. She was discreetly invited to the White House on at least 3 occasions, always under code names. She stayed in hotel rooms paid for by intermediaries. The affair was fiery, but unstable. According to close friends, the president saw her as a walking problem. Soon after, Robert Kennedy, JFK's younger brother and then U.S. Attorney General, began visiting her. Some believe it was an attempt to replace the president, keeping the distraction alive while JFK distanced himself. But Marilyn wasn't willing to be swapped like a chess piece. She called, cried, pleaded, and threatened. And she began writing everything down in a red diary, a notebook where she recorded conversations, details, names, and dates. That diary vanished the same day she died. The Madison Square Garden Affair. May 19, 1962. Marilyn walks on stage in a sheer, crystal-covered dress and whispers, "Happy birthday, Mr. President," before thousands of people and cameras. The gesture, sensual and provocative, infuriated Kennedy's advisors. First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy did not attend the event. Behind the scenes, many say this was the final straw. Shortly after, the president ended contact with Marilyn, coldly and definitively. But what was meant to be the end became a growing threat. She felt used, discarded, and betrayed. And she started to talk. To friends. To journalists. To studio staff. She reportedly said, "They erased me from their lives. They think they can get away with everything. But I know things. Things nobody else knows." State secrets on satin pillows. Sources close to Marilyn claim she overheard compromising conversations while lying in JFK's arms. Topics like Cuba, the missile crisis, even the mafia's role in the 1960 presidential election. She told a friend, "They talk like I'm a statue. But I hear. And I remember." When the president severed ties, Robert Kennedy was sent to calm her. His meetings with Marilyn became more frequent, but more tense. The charm was gone, replaced by cold pragmatism. At one point, he reportedly demanded, bluntly, that she destroy her diary and stay away from the press. Marilyn refused. August 4, 1962. The silent visit. Multiple witnesses have sworn that Robert Kennedy was in Los Angeles the day Marilyn died. Though official records place him in San Francisco, there were accounts from neighbors, including a young paperboy, who claimed to have seen a man resembling Robert Kennedy entering Marilyn's house around 4 p.m. A retired nurse, Janet Etzel, who lived on the same street, said in a 1984 interview, "I saw 2 men leave the house around 10 p.m. One of them looked like Bobby Kennedy. The other was wearing gloves. They got into a black car and drove off without saying a word." The official version never included this visit, but a confidential LAPD report, obtained years later, recorded that a Secret Service vehicle was identified near the residence that night. The document was immediately classified. Silence for national security. What Marilyn knew, or claimed to know, was dangerous. She had mentioned plans to write a book. She said so to journalists and friends. She spoke of truths about the men who run this country with one hand and lie with the other. On the morning of August 4th, she allegedly told her makeup artist, Alan Whitey Snyder, "Tonight, I'm going to confront them. They're going to hear me." But that very night, she was silenced forever. The pact of silence. After her death, the Kennedys went completely silent. JFK never spoke publicly about her. Robert, questioned in informal hearings, always denied any involvement. But in 1968, 6 years after Marilyn's death, he too was assassinated, shot in Los Angeles, just miles from her home. Coincidence? Or fate collecting its debt? Secret revealed. In 2013, a letter was discovered inside the safe of a now-deceased former Secret Service agent. Addressed to an anonymous contact, it read, "She kept the diary as proof. He went there to retrieve it. Things got out of control. Then, everything was wiped." The letter has never been officially authenticated, but handwriting experts say it matches the writing of Agent Henry D. Hines, who was assigned to Robert Kennedy's security detail in 1962, who really was with Marilyn that night. Marilyn Monroe's death wasn't just the end of a star. For some, it was the result of a carefully orchestrated operation. Not by jilted lovers or tabloid scandals, but by something far darker, an action coordinated by one of the most powerful agencies on the planet. The CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, appears in nearly every unofficial investigation into Marilyn's death. The motives vary, but they all converge on one word: risk. She knew too much, talked too much, and was heard too often. The Actress and the Spies. By mid-1961, Marilyn began moving in influential political circles. She attended parties with diplomats, government-linked businessmen, and men whose names never appeared in the society pages, but did appear in confidential CIA reports. Accounts suggest she had brief encounters with former intelligence agents who viewed her as a strategic asset, someone who could be used to extract information from inside the White House. According to documents recovered by independent investigators, a CIA dossier dated September 1962 mentions Monroe alongside the phrase, "vulnerable to external approaches." Marilyn was seen as unstable, emotional, and likely to talk during times of distress. For a woman sharing a bed with the President of the United States and the U.S. Attorney General, this vulnerability was something the CIA could not afford to overlook. Operation Candlestick. In 1975, an anonymous tip revealed the existence of a classified operation known as Candlestick. Its goal was to plant listening devices in the homes of public figures connected to high-ranking officials. The objective? Monitor for possible leaks of sensitive government information. Marilyn Monroe was on the list. Partially redacted documents released under the Freedom of Information Act refer to the installation of electronic equipment in her home in the weeks leading up to her death. A former CIA technical agent, known only by the codename Burnell, revealed in an interview that microphones were placed in 3 parts of Marilyn's house: her telephone, a bedroom lamp, and the hallway closet. The order didn't come from a judge. It came from the top. But what were they hoping to hear? Castro, Cuba, and Marilyn. In 1962, the United States was neck-deep in the Cold War. The world teetered on the edge of nuclear disaster. The Cuban Missile Crisis was about to erupt. One spark could ignite it all. Some theories claim that in intimate conversations with John and Robert Kennedy, Marilyn overheard details of secret operations against Fidel Castro, including assassination plots, the deployment of mercenaries, and acts of sabotage. In a passage reportedly reconstructed from her Red Diary, Marilyn is said to have written, "They're planning to take him out. People are already in Havana. They laugh about it like it's a game." Though never confirmed, this passage has fueled suspicions that she became a threat to national security. The missing recording. Persistent rumors claim that on the night of her death, a hidden microphone captured a heated exchange between Marilyn and an unidentified man, in which she allegedly said, "If they won't give me answers, I'll tell everything. I'm not a toy. I can end this in one interview." The recording was reportedly archived in a CIA vault under the seal, "Top Secret, Eyes Only." It has never been found. What is known is that, days after her death, agency technicians were present in Brentwood. A leaked CIA internal report from 1992 confirms the retrieval of electronic material from a residence located at coordinates matching Marilyn's home. A war of agencies. During those years, the CIA and FBI were locked in their own Cold War. While J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, maintained extensive files on both the Kennedys and Marilyn, the CIA saw her as a security risk that needed to be neutralized, or exploited. Some theorists believe the actress was the target of a silencing plan that went wrong. The dose was too strong. The manipulations spiraled out of control. And what was supposed to look like a natural death became a sloppy cover-up. Others argue the death was intentional, a high-level authorized operation executed by a group that answered only to Central Intelligence. The question remains: was Marilyn being watched? Was she used as bait? Or was she eliminated for knowing too much? The Burnett Report. In 1985, a former staffer of the Senate Intelligence Committee, identified only as Burnett, wrote a revealing letter to journalist Anthony Summers. The truth is, Marilyn's death was classified as collateral damage. There was concern she might become a vulnerable link between the Kennedy brothers and covert operations against foreign interests. She was a national security risk. The letter was destroyed in a mysterious fire the following year. Digitized copies were deemed inconclusive. Institutional silence. The CIA has never officially commented on any involvement with Marilyn Monroe, nor denied it. When questioned by journalists, the response has always been the same: no comment on past operations or specific individuals. For many, that silence is the loudest confirmation of all. Secret revealed. In 2021, declassified documents revealed that between July and August 1962, surveillance authorizations were granted for 3 celebrity residences suspected of contact with sensitive agents. One of those homes belonged to Marilyn Monroe. The documents also mention an intercepted package sent by her to a contact in New York. It was never found. What was in that package? And why would the CIA care so much about an actress? There is one object that haunts every investigation into the death of Marilyn Monroe: a small red notebook with thick pages and slanted handwriting, written in pencil and blue ink. According to multiple accounts, it was where Marilyn jotted down intimate thoughts, names of powerful people, private conversations, and matters of state. This diary, mentioned by several close friends, assistants, and investigators, vanished the same night she died. It was never listed in the home's inventory, never appeared in auctions, and never surfaced as official evidence. Yet its existence is more than rumor. It is one of the most tangible threads in the veil covering this case. Witnesses to the writing. Publicist Pat Newcomb, one of the few people with Marilyn in the days before her death, confirmed in an interview years later that the actress always carried a red notebook in her leather purse. It was almost therapeutic. She wrote everything in there: random phrases, people's names, conversations that made her uncomfortable. Hairdresser George Masters also mentioned the diary in a 1983 interview. "She showed it to me once. It had lines like 'He promised to call me. Robert said this would end badly,' and a note about Cuba and Castro." Housekeeper Eunice Murray, in a rare moment of honesty during a German documentary in the 1980s, was even more direct. "I saw that diary that week. After she died, I looked for it, and it was gone." The final entries. The exact contents of the diary have never been confirmed, but reconstructions based on testimonies and partial descriptions suggest the following fragments. "John told me I mustn't tell anyone, but he fears an attack. Robert wants me to disappear for a while. He's nervous. Heard something today about Cuba. Armed men. Then, laughter. I'm scared. If anything happens to me, find this notebook." To many, these lines are apocryphal. To others, they are part of a puzzle buried by history, but never fully erased. The night it vanished. Jack Clemens, the first police officer to arrive at Marilyn's home after her death, said in several interviews that the scene seemed too clean. One of the strangest things was the absence of personal papers, letters, or items typically found in the room of someone who wrote frequently. Clemens was blunt. There were no diaries, no notebooks, not even a note. But everyone knew she kept notes. Even more troubling, a former Fox Studios employee, who chose to remain anonymous, told journalist Donald Wolfe that a lawyer connected to the Democratic Party entered the house just hours before police arrived, and left with a brown folder and a black handbag. This man was never officially identified. The silent agent. In 1995, a retired FBI agent, whose name was withheld for safety reasons, revealed he was tasked with locating and destroying a written record belonging to Marilyn Monroe that could compromise government officials. According to him, the order came from high up. It wasn't a court order. It was institutional. Almost like an emergency op: find the item. Neutralize. He stated that the diary contained names such as Giancana, Hoover, Bobby, and Jack. When asked where the notebook ended up, his reply was cryptic. "Let's just say it's no longer a threat." Cross-censorship. documents obtained via the Freedom of Information Act reveal that several FBI reports on Marilyn were redacted in parts referencing handwritten records and compromising notes. Analysts reviewing these files noted that the blacked-out sections conceal the names of people still alive, or institutions still active. One such document, dated August 2, 1962, 2 days before her death, includes the line, "Source reports growing concern over contents stored at M. Monroe's residence. Risk of media leak." The rest of the paragraph is completely redacted. The trail never followed. What's most puzzling is the official silence surrounding the diary. No prosecutor, no investigator, not even the Church Committee of the 1970s, which uncovered CIA and FBI abuses, ever publicly addressed the issue. It's as if there were a pact to erase this evidence from history. But what if Marilyn did record everything? What if the diary still exists, hidden, locked away, waiting to be read? Secret revealed. In 2019, a private collector of historical documents told the press he had acquired, at a clandestine auction in Geneva, a notebook in English with a red cover, containing political names and Cold War date references. The item vanished before it could be authenticated. Its origin? A shipment labeled Hollywood Photo Studio Property, 1960s. Did Marilyn Monroe's diary briefly resurface, only to disappear again? In the shadows of post-war American politics, there was a force as feared as the government itself, the Cosa Nostra. The Mafia, with its codes of silence and invisible hands, influenced elections, controlled unions, and extended its reach into the halls of power in Washington. And at the heart of this dangerous game, perhaps unknowingly, was Marilyn Monroe. The actress with crimson lips and a little girl voice had become a key player, not only in the arms of two of the most powerful men in the country, but also in the secret alliances between the Kennedy clan and the bosses of organized crime. The unofficial pact. When John F. Kennedy ran for president in 1960, his campaign desperately needed to win key states. Chief among them was Illinois, a state long dominated by corrupt political machines under mafia influence. Enter Sam Giancana, the Chicago mob boss known for his connections to politicians, entertainers, and the criminal underworld. According to multiple sources, including Double Cross, a book written by Chuck and Sam Giancana Jr., Sam allegedly ordered vote tampering in Cook County to secure JFK's victory. In return, he expected protection and favors from the White House. But once Robert Kennedy was appointed Attorney General, he launched a very public crusade against organized crime, making the mafia his top target. The betrayal was met with fury. The emotional link. Marilyn. Giancana and other mobsters had known Marilyn Monroe since her days attending lavish parties hosted by Frank Sinatra and members of the so-called Rat Pack, a circle that often included discreet mobsters and rising politicians. She was admired, protected, desired, and sometimes used. Rumors suggest Marilyn was introduced to JFK at a party sponsored by Giancana, precisely to strengthen the bond between both sides. She was the perfect charm, able to seduce, distract, and, if necessary, compromise. But when the political tide turned, Marilyn went from useful to dangerous. The threat of exposure. In the months leading up to her death, Marilyn had become increasingly unpredictable. Her emotional breakdowns were more intense. She claimed she would go to the press, that she would tell everything. According to journalist Robert Slatzer, who claimed to have briefly married Marilyn, she once tearfully confessed, "They used me. All of them. I know about dirty deals, dangerous connections. If I talk, it's over." Statements like that were taken very seriously by the mafia. Giancana was known to solve problems quietly. He had eliminated witnesses before, including people tied to the FBI. The vanished informant. In 1977, a former FBI informant known only as JG revealed in a confidential deposition that he overheard from one of Giancana's associates that Marilyn had been silenced at the request of a very important politician. The exact quote in the report: "She knew too much. She was going to blow the whole thing open. Better to take her out before she talked." A few weeks later, JG died in a car accident under mysterious circumstances. The documents containing his statements were classified, and later partially destroyed in a fire at the FBI archive in Boston. Hoover's files. J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, kept one of the most extensive personal files in American history on public figures. In 1981, When portions of those documents were declassified, there were multiple cross-references between Marilyn, the Kennedys, Frank Sinatra, and Giancana. One handwritten note by Hoover, dated July 1962, read, "MM is emotionally unstable. May compromise allies. Monitor. If she becomes a risk, notify Division G." At the time, Division G was responsible for counterintelligence and mafia infiltration. The night of the faceless men. Witnesses in Brentwood, the neighborhood where Marilyn lived, reported seeing men in dark suits entering and leaving her property on the night of her death. None were ever identified. Frank Capel, an independent investigator and author of The Strange Death of Marilyn Monroe, wrote, "Sources indicate 2 men hired by mafia intermediaries were at the house. The goal was to recover documents and ensure silence." One of those sources, a former private detective, claimed Marilyn was drugged using an uncommon method, not just pills. This could explain why her autopsy showed high levels of barbiturates, yet no residue in her stomach. Severed ties. After Marilyn's death, Frank Sinatra, a close friend of both Marilyn and Giancana, quietly cut ties with the Kennedys. He avoided interviews. Vanished for months. His biographer, James Kaplan, stated, "Frank knew more than he could say, and he knew it was too dangerous to try." The same happened with Pat Newcomb, Peter Lawford, and others close to the actress. A circle of silence closed in around the case, as if they'd all been warned. Secret revealed. In 1998, journalist Seymour Hersh revealed the existence of a microfilm containing recordings of calls made by Sam Giancana in the days leading up to Marilyn's death. In one of them, he allegedly said, "The blonde's gonna blow it all up. It's time." The microfilm was seized by the FBI. It was never released. The blonde. Marilyn. Was she about to expose a network that stretched from the president to the most feared mob boss in America? Ralph Greenson wasn't just a prestigious psychiatrist in Los Angeles. He was the man who, during Marilyn Monroe's final months, had full access to her mind, her medications, her routine, and her secrets. He saw her almost daily. He frequented her home. He was the only one who could calm her, or so he claimed. But who really was Dr. Greenson? And what happened behind those 4 walls when only the 2 of them were present? The analyst of power. Ralph Greenson was one of the most sought-after names among Hollywood's elite. He treated celebrities, studio executives, and even political figures. A devout Freudian, he practiced intense techniques such as free association, regression therapy, and, most controversially, controlled emotional invasion. When he began treating Marilyn, he didn't just become her therapist. He infiltrated every aspect of her life. According to neighbors, friends, and even housekeeper Eunice Murray, Greenson spent hours a day at the actress's home. He monitored her sleep, prescribed or influenced the prescription of medication, supervised her diet, and advised on her relationships. "He kept her in a bubble," said one close friend. "It was like he wanted to isolate her from the world." A relationship of dependency. Emotionally fragile, Marilyn began to trust Greenson blindly. To her, he was a confidant, a surrogate father, a therapist, and a guide. Many say she fell in love with him in a sick, platonic way. But there was something deeply unsettling about their dynamic. Journalist Anthony Summers, author of Goddess, The Secret Lives of Marilyn Monroe, wrote, "Greenson began shaping Marilyn's life according to his own vision of stability. He pushed away friends who emotionally disturbed her, kept her under constant medication, and in her final days, seemed desperate for her to remain silent." According to later reports, he even urged her to cut off contact with the Kennedy brothers. The Doctor of Silence. Greenson's behavior following Marilyn's death raised suspicions. He was the first doctor to arrive at the house, called by Eunice Murray, and the first to enter the actress's bedroom, even before police were notified. Strangely, he declared it a suicide, despite the absence of a coroner at the scene. "She was cold, but calm. It was as if we all knew this would happen," he told the press at the time. Later, Greenson changed his story multiple times. First, he said he broke a window with Murray's help to enter the room. Then, he claimed the housekeeper was already inside when he arrived. In another interview, he said Marilyn was still breathing when he got there, and died in his arms. None of these accounts were confirmed by official forensic reports. Overmedicated. Greenson wasn't directly responsible for prescribing barbiturates, but he was part of the team of doctors managing Marilyn's medication. Among them were Dr. Hyman Engelberg, her general physician, and Dr. Leon Crone, her gynecologist. Their coordination was chaotic at best. In the week leading up to her death, Marilyn had been prescribed multiple doses of Nembutal and chloral hydrate, two potent sedatives. In high amounts, they're lethal. Toxicology reports showed astronomical levels in her blood and liver, far more than anyone could take intentionally. Still, Greenson told the Los Angeles Times. She knew what she was taking. It wasn't a mistake or an accident. It was the only way out she could see. But then why were there no drug residues in her stomach? If she swallowed the pills, where were the traces? Were they administered through another route, with medical assistance? Psychological manipulation. A more recent theory, developed by behavioral analysts, suggests that Greenson used his influence over Marilyn to isolate her from public life, with plans for involuntary commitment. According to an unauthenticated letter found years later among his assistant's papers, the doctor wrote, "She is in crisis. She needs protection from herself. Perhaps a silent commitment is necessary, or something more definitive." This phrase fuels the theory that Greenson, fearing a public breakdown and the scandals Marilyn threatened to expose, opted for a clinical solution to preserve reputations, including his own. The connection to Eunice Murray. Another disturbing element is Greenson's close relationship with housekeeper Eunice Murray. She was personally recommended by him to work at Marilyn's house and was in daily contact with the doctor, according to phone records. She was present at the time of death, saw the body first, and never gave a consistent statement. In a rare moment of nervousness during a 1980s documentary, Murray said, "Dr. Greenson, he just wanted to protect her. The pressure was too much. Nobody knows what that was." Shortly after, she refused to continue filming and left the set. Secret revealed. In 2005, the existence of tape recordings made by Greenson during therapy sessions with Marilyn was revealed. In them, according to leaked excerpts, the actress directly mentions her involvement with the Kennedys, her disillusionment with Hollywood, and growing paranoia about being followed. Some tapes are missing. Others were confiscated by the FBI in the 1960s. None have been made public. What did Greenson hear from Marilyn? And what did he choose to do with that knowledge? Marilyn Monroe's body was found in her bed on August 5, 1962. But in the days that followed, the death of the most desired woman in the world became a spectacle of silence, control, and manipulation. More than a funeral, it was a ritual of erasure, and for some, the true conclusion of a cover-up operation that had been carefully stitched together long before her final breath. The controlled burial. The funeral was not organized by close friends or by Marilyn's nearly non-existent family. Instead, control fell to Joe DiMaggio, the actress's ex-husband, who remained deeply connected to her. DiMaggio barred the press, banned Hollywood figures, vetoed all Kennedys, and didn't allow any speeches. He personally chose the casket, the flowers, and the dress, a dark green, high-collared outfit, somber, far removed from Marilyn's sensual image. It was a cold, silent, unsettling ceremony. Almost as if everyone knew something was being hidden, wrote one of the few guests in attendance. DiMaggio, never a man of many words, reportedly said to the chaplain in private, "They destroyed her. The same ones sending flowers now." The disappearance of evidence. In the days between her death and burial, several of Marilyn's personal belongings mysteriously vanished. Among them, her red diary, said to contain notes about meetings with powerful men, tape recordings from therapy sessions with Dr. Greenson, unpublished photographs taken the week of her death, drafts of unsent letters. Housekeeper Eunice Murray, when questioned years later, said, "Some people came to take things. They said it was to protect her memory." No one ever confirmed who these people were. FBI agents later admitted to entering the house before the coroner had finalized his report, but denied removing anything. Still, records show unauthorized activity at the scene between 4 o'clock and 6 a.m., before Greenson publicly announced her death. The missing photos. Photographer Alan Grant was among the last to photograph Marilyn alive, during an interview for Life magazine just 3 days before her death. He claimed there were at least 36 unpublished shots showing Marilyn melancholy, anxious, and worn out. "When I handed in the negatives, some disappeared. I never saw them again." To this day, I don't know what happened. Other photographers told similar stories. A series of images taken outside Monroe's home on the night of August 4th was reportedly confiscated by men who identified themselves as federal agents. The photos were never published. The negatives were never returned. The silenced press. In the days after Marilyn's death, American newspapers adopted a single narrative: suicide by overdose. No major outlet questioned the lack of drug residue in her stomach, the timeline inconsistencies, or the conflicting accounts from her doctors. Magazines like Time and Newsweek ran obituaries that carefully avoided mentioning the Kennedys, ignored the FBI and mafia connections, and portrayed Marilyn as a lonely, tragic artist. For decades, Marilyn Monroe's death was treated as a personal tragedy, the expected fate of an unstable star, addicted to pills and desperate for affection. But beneath the myth, hidden documents, suppressed testimonies, and sealed files told a very different story. It was the story of a woman who knew too much, and who, because of that, had to be silenced. Case reopened, new witnesses, old fears. In 1982, Los Angeles District Attorney John Van de Kamp officially reopened the investigation into Marilyn's death. The world once again turned its eyes to what had long been considered a closed case. During the new inquiry, testimonies emerged that had never been considered. Norman Jeffries, son-in-law of housekeeper Eunice Murray, claimed that Robert Kennedy was indeed at Marilyn's house the night she died, accompanied by two men believed to be security agents. According to Jeffries, a heated argument took place between them and the actress. Hours later, Marilyn was found dead. Detective Mike Rothmiller, a former LA police intelligence officer, revealed the existence of a special file kept at police headquarters called the Dossier, containing transcripts of wiretapped phone calls made from Marilyn's home, including conversations with the Kennedy brothers. Those tapes, according to Rothmiller, were sent to the FBI and later vanished from public archives. What she knew wasn't small. She talked about nuclear secrets, U.S. relations with Cuba, and clandestine operations. This wasn't just pillow talk. It was high-level espionage. The Red Diary. Among the most sought-after pieces of evidence was Marilyn's legendary Red Diary, where she wrote details about her meetings and deepest reflections. Many claimed to have seen it. Actor Peter Lawford, John Kennedy's brother-in-law, said Marilyn showed it to him one night in Malibu, saying, "If anything happens to me, this will tell everything." The diary disappeared the same night her body was discovered. It has never resurfaced. Rumors persist that it was confiscated by federal agents and still lies today in a government vault, too dangerous for the public eye. Operation Cover-Up. According to investigator Anthony Summers, a coordinated effort took place to stage the suicide scene before police arrived. The pill bottle was repositioned. The lack of a glass of water, essential to swallow dozens of pills, was ignored. The body, strangely posed, showed none of the usual signs of an oral overdose. Eyewitness reports claim an FBI agent was at the house less than an hour after Marilyn was discovered, even before forensic teams arrived. Police photographs of the scene disappeared from official archives between 1963 and 1965. The autopsy was inconclusive but officially sealed with the label, probable suicide. In 1992, a former Justice Department secretary, speaking anonymously, stated, "It was a direct order. The Monroe name had to be disconnected from the Kennedys, fast. And she was just about to blow it all open." The names behind the silence. Over the years, several figures have been linked to the alleged conspiracy. Robert Kennedy, allegedly present at Marilyn's home on the night of her death, according to multiple sources, yet his name appears in no official reports. Peter Lawford, actor and Kennedy in-law, who reportedly destroyed personal tapes and letters from Marilyn after her death. Dr. Ralph Greenson, the psychiatrist who had full control over Marilyn's life, her routine, medications, and mental state. J. Edgar Hoover, FBI director, determined to protect state secrets and, according to declassified files, kept Monroe under active surveillance. But the full truth never came out. Because each of them, in their own way, profited from the silence. Marilyn, woman, martyr, and myth. Norma Jean Baker was born to be forgotten, but she became Marilyn Monroe to be eternal. A woman who, beneath the golden skin of Hollywood sensuality, held a sharp mind, a wounded heart, and a restless soul. She wasn't just a victim of fame. She was a victim of a system that used, discarded, and erased women who were dangerously aware. Her crime? Knowing too much. Trusting the wrong people. Threatening to speak. "I'm just a piece in their game," she once wrote to a friend. "But if I fall, maybe the whole game will collapse." The final whisper. Today, more than 60 years later, the truth about Marilyn still lives in the gaps, in hidden documents, missing tapes, and feared memories. But one thing is certain. She did not die alone, nor by her own hand. She was silenced. Calmly. Methodically. Out of fear of what she might reveal. Epilogue. The final secret. In 2022, a previously classified file was released by the U.S. National Archives. Over 200 pages on celebrity surveillance. On one page, dated July 1962, there is a partial transcript of a wiretapped conversation intercepted in Brentwood. A female voice says, "If I talk, they'll have to kill me." Wiretap label. Operation Red File. Target. Monroe, Maryland. Case status. Closed, marked harmful to national security.